Hello, today we're going to talk about Confessions, Season 2, The Autumn, Episode 22. It is kind of cool in Dallas today, and fall is on its way out. Winter is going to be coming in. A lot of people are reflecting about their life, so we welcome our subscribers, and we hope that you stay with us through Season 3, Winter. How is it for you today? Is it fall? Is it winter? How's the weather?
What do you mean, how's the weather?
Well, I mean, are
It's
you in
okay. It's
fall
it's
still
it's
there?
overcast but bright, if you know what I mean.
Overcast but bright. You mean there's sun behind the clouds?
Right. And it just
Well,
went down, I
we are,
think. It's
yeah,
about
go ahead.
4:30, and the sun goes down early these days.
Goes down early. Maybe it's tired of just like pressing on through the
The
COVID world.
the sun has set on our day under the sun. Well, it's okay.
Okay,
Things of
so
that sort. It's
today we're talking
mortifying.
about today we're talking about confessions, and I was going to briefly talk a little bit about Saint Augustine, and I think you were going to bring up a work by Tolstoy.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Confession. Uh, I'm not sure if you read it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, a couple months ago, you had briefly mentioned it in passing, and I had never heard about it, which is, I think of myself as well read and educated in the classics of world literature. I know Anna Karenina, I know, some of his short stories. I think I know, but I had never really heard the Confessions. And then you said, "Oh yeah, yeah," like he really liked the Confessions. So I did listen to some audio recordings of it, and it's very long. It's long.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
laborious.
apparently he found himself in an existential crisis in which, from a rational perspective, his life had no higher meaning. And that's kind of where I'm finding myself these days. And, he considered life like nothing more than senseless suffering.
Senseless suffering. I thought he had like 13 or 14 kids. That guy must have had some fun.
Well, I can't comment on that. I only have two, but the only way to end this meaningless existence, he thought, would be suicide, which was kind of overkill for me.
That's kind of funny. Suicide is overkill. No, I mean,
However,
it's
look at
not
the bright
funny.
side.
Yeah.
Look at the bright side. Many people, lots of people who seem to lead happy lives. Doesn't like make you jealous? It sure does me.
Jealous?
Yeah.
Well,
When I see those
well,
people,
yeah, yeah, I see what you mean. Like when I drive around in Dallas and look at the beautiful houses and the lawns and people playing ball on the front yard with their kids running around just like it's in a classic, you know, Netflix family movie. I sometimes wonder, wow, what went wrong in my life? I want to be a happy family, but and I do sometimes feel jealous, and
what if, what if,
some people say that jealousy is a sin, but
is
I
it?
don't really feel it.
Uh,
Well, jealousy.
well,
Well, if they
I
say,
didn't know that, but
well,
I do
one
now.
of the sins is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. That means you shouldn't be looking at your friend's wife, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Like, don't you be looking at their car or their house or their, you know, um,
Yeah,
Mercedes
yeah.
parked out front.
Well, not to change the subject, but the only confession I ever went to was my first, and it didn't go through, you may say, because the line was I had been in, and it suddenly stopped, and the priest had to continue the mass or something, and I didn't make it. But I don't know, how specific do I need to be if I ever go again?
Well, what you need to do is this is my suggestion. This is a personal suggestion that is to pray for the right confessor. So sometimes you can have a priest who is very, very good at listening and he'll give you some wisdom words. And sometimes you can have a priest maybe he doesn't understand what you're saying, but he also listens. So I have been. Someone told me some years ago to pray for a good confessor, someone that would be able to listen to you in a wise manner. And I actually have been, as a Catholic, have been to confession off and on over the years, and it's almost like therapy because you just admit that you're human and you have these various situations going on that maybe they're not so holy, and sometimes the priest will you know um, give you an interesting penance. I remember once I went to confession, and this very wise priest told me that my penance was to make an act of contrition, and then uh, go buy myself something as a treat because I'm very hard on myself. That was like such a Zen penance. I'm
Hmm.
very hard on myself. Very,
Hmm.
very. Are you hard on yourself? Do you judge yourself harshly?
Yeah, I think sometimes I do, but then again, I read it somewhere that you have to love yourself first, and that would be a good thing to do. And I'm not. I think I wouldn't feel comfortable if I had to tell all the mortal things I've probably committed. Or maybe I'll just write about them instead, like Tolstoy did when he wrote about his reflections on nihilism, suicidal thoughts, and he probably tried to reconcile his rational thought with faith and with the genius he obviously is. I'm surprised he couldn't really, at least from my point of view, make two kind of sensible conclusion. I'm still struggling to understand what was his point after all. He ends
Well,
it
I
with
think,
the dream, I guess.
how many, approximately how many pages is the Confessions? Is it like 50 or is it like 100 or is it like
I guess it's
is it,
not too long, 50 or 60.
okay. And I know when I listened to it, I started reading it, but became very laborious. He just kept going over and over and over and over and over the same things. I like something a little more succinct, but I feel like going to therapy, starting a work of art, starting a diary, doing a video blog. All of these are adventures in self-discovery. So I don't know. I liked the ending of it and I liked the beginning, but the middle was just like way too long.
Yeah. Well, as I told you, I'm having still having trouble understanding the eventual conclusion that Tolstoy comes to. But we've discussed a few. Just when we discussed the episode, we mentioned the name of Dorothy Day, who I think was very close in her views, or Tolstoy's work. No, I think she was very heavily influenced by Tolstoy's work uh, in terms of maybe his final outlook can best be described as a form of Christian anarchism, and they are somehow similar to that of a Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker movement.
Well, Dorothy Day is someone that I have learned about. She was an American journalist, a social activist, and she led a kind of bohemian life in New York, around Brooklyn. And I've been to Brooklyn, I've been to Manhattan. And then she was very interested in the women's right to vote, reproductive freedom for women, and just basic food, shelter, and water for people. So a common good. And she did start with Peter Maurin, the Catholic worker movement. And I was very fortunate when I was living in Houston to work very closely or volunteer very closely at this one Catholic worker house where I would take some students there on field trips, or maybe I would donate clothes, or maybe I just go sort clothes. So I don't know, for me, sometimes just really simple things like you've talked about, petting a cat can be a release from stress. For me, just going there, uh, donating 2 hours and just sorting through clothes. People would bring clothes and drop them off, and I would just sort them into like men, boys, you know, children, and
Yeah.
then women, girls. And so I don't know, just yeah,
You
I
mentioned
think. Go ahead.
in the beginning that Anna Karenina and but you know that Tolstoy. I guess I told you a long time ago. I'm not sure, but maybe I did. That he renounced his Anna Karenina War and Peace works, and he kind of felt sorry for those who still needed literature like that. And he considered his most famous book, like his best books, this Confession, and also The Kingdom of God is Within You, I guess, which he wrote. And I think it inspired Gandhi at the time. They also exchanged letters.
Well, there's a lot there in what you're saying. Let me kind of unpack that a little bit. Uh, the whole topic of confessions for our episode today is like kind of exploring and then exposing or talking about what's deep within you. So I think there was a deep movement for justice in Dorothy Day. I think that Tolstoy looked around at his country and saw injustice, wondered about justice. I know that the word confessions appears a lot even in the popular world. There's a 2009 film, Confessions of a Shopaholic, a 2004 film, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, a 2002 film, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Here's another one, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. So I think
I read that.
people
I read
like
that
to
one the
read.
last.
Which one did you read?
The Economic Hitman.
Well, I think people like to read confessions. It makes you feel like you're close to someone, like you're kind of inside your mind, in their mind. I did not read that. What was it about? Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh, you haven't read that? Well, I've read that was a book. Basically, the World Bank sends its agents into third world countries, I think, and stuff like that. Geopolitics and macroeconomy.
Geopolitics and
Yeah,
macroeconomy.
it's not
We're
exactly
going
the
to have
soul
to do another
searching
episode
work.
on that maybe next season. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that it's not exactly the soul searching work. Also, you may judge it by the cover, but yeah, this confession, I don't know. I still find it hard to accept the doctrine. I mean itself, and I don't know.
You mean the sacrament of
Yeah,
confession?
yeah,
Well, it's because you're a human. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to live.
right.
God
Actually,
God
that's one of
doesn't.
the
Yeah.
points Tolstoy mentioned in his book. Like he tried to understand life, and one of the, you know, ideas he expressed was maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he should just try to live.
Well, when I think of the confessions, and when you and I were talking about like some ideas for episodes, I think of Saint Augustine, um, the City of God, and his work called the Confessions. And um, a lot of people don't know that he was actually a bishop in northern Africa,
Hmm.
and he led a very worldly life for a while. And then after some time, he began to meditate on the meaning of his life and, finally decided to live, for a greater good or a higher good. And he's also, his actual Latin name was Aurelius Augustinus.
Hmm.
And he was born actually in the month of November, which we're in right now. He's considered to be a father of a church of a theologian. So
Hmm.
he's
It's
pretty famous guy.
very much like Tolstoy, who also renounced wealth, fame, and privilege, and you know, he abjured violence in all its forms and was ready to suffer for doing so.
Well, also Augustine, appears in a song by Bob Dylan that starts off, I dreamed I saw St. Augustine. So, we have talked about dreams and how dreams flow in and out. And um, Augustine was living during the time of the Roman civilization. So, the Empire of Rome had extended down into the northern part, the Mediterranean coast, of northern Africa. So, I don't know. For a while, he was living a very worldly life, and then he became transformed and said that everything that he had read and everything that he had had done was very limited when he stares at the crucifixion. That it's a mystery that can't be understood. So I think Tolstoy was very occupied with mystery and meaning.
Yeah, he was. Speaking of which, there is the fable, Eastern fable, is his book Confession, which I also didn't quite understand. Maybe if I read it out to you, like really short paragraph, would you
Sure.
like express your opinion too? Well, the fable is about a traveler who was overtaken on a plane by some kind of a dragon, and he escaped from the beast, gets himself into dry well, but in the in the bottom of the well there is another beast, another dragon who's like opened jaws to swallow him, and there is no escape. The dragon above and the dragon below, and this man he just seizes some kind of a twig which grows from a crack in the well.
He seizes a what?
A twig,
Twig?
twig growing
Oh,
branch,
so he grabs onto a branch.
yeah, and clings
Okay.
to it, and he knows he's gonna fall, but and except also then he sees that mice who go around the branch and you know uh, kind of gnaw
Eating
at
it.
it, and he knows he's gonna die anyway, and um, while he's still hanging, he looks around, sees some drops of honey on the leaves of the twig, and reaches them with his tongue and licks them. That basically like the last wish, probably. And I thought, why would Tolstoy write something like that? Then he make
Oh,
comparison
that's
with his own
great.
lives.
That's fabulous. So I like the way you expressed it, dragon below, dragon above. So like we have outer temptations, we have lower temptations. We're
Yeah,
somehow holding on to life. And also that reminds me of an episode from season one about Sisyphus. He's going to roll this rock up the hill, then it rolls back down, then he's going to roll it back up the hill. But there's something noble in rolling the rock. And I see from the story that you just narrated that there's something amazing about life, even though you know you're going to die, just tasting some honey or having a nice cup of coffee or looking at a sunset is part of our dignity of being a human,
oh,
of being a
I like
man.
how you put it.
Well, thanks. No, it's a great little story, and it did remind me of Sisyphus. I mean, here we are in the year 2020, in the month of November. There's so many struggles and difficulties with family and finances and jobs, and somehow, if we can just find some small joy, it makes life worth meaning. I'm not sure we have any super overarching meaning, but yeah, I'm having some hot chocolate and I've got a couple of cookies, so I'm pretty happy.
Oh. And I remember that quote again, that the meaning of life is the life of meaning, whatever that means. But yeah, that sounds cool.
Well, good. Well, let's end with that deep thought and thank you for listening and we hope to see you for our next episode. Goodbye for
Stay
now.
safe. Bye bye.